I was just living sort of like as the wind blew me. There would be moments of accomplishment or celebration, but it was always fleeting. That was the beginning of God allowing some adversity and allowing some things to happen in my life that had always come easy, but it allowed me to see how the things of the world they don't satisfy. So I grew up in a very loving home. I have fond memories of my childhood. Growing up, I had a mom and dad who loved the Lord, and they loved myself and my brother very much. My older brother always took me under his wing. He always let me come be around him and sort of, be the little annoying brother, but he always loved me and he supported me. And my mom and dad, I lived in a house full of love. And I saw my dad always protect his family and protect my mom. He adored my mom, and he was so proud of my brother and me. It was never for like big accomplishments in sports ever. He was proud of that, but his heart wasn't wrapped up with things of this world. It just wasn't. It was more Jesus Christ, his family, and the people around him. I remember going to church all the time. We would go to church twice on Sundays. We would go to church on Wednesday night. Basically, anytime the doors of the church were open, we were there. So at an early age, I determined that there was a God. That there was never a question whether there was a God, and whether heaven and hell were real places. As a kid, I was very hyperactive. I was always into something. I was ornery. I always had a good heart, but I always would do things a little edgy because I was a hyperactive kid. And I realized at an early age that, sinners, I was told, go to hell. That's who goes to hell. And I was always very, very frightened to go to hell. That sort of stuck with me, believe it or not, for a long time throughout my life. I was probably about in the third grade. My mom and dad put me into a basketball league. I had always played against older kids when I was really little because I would play with my brother and his friends. And when I finally got to play against kids my own age in the third grade, I think I had like 48 points in a game as a third grader. And I realized very quickly that I was a really good basketball player. By the sixth grade, I went on a national AAU tournament in Salt Lake City, Utah. I was, I think, like 11 years old. And I start getting recognition on a national level at a really early age. And the thing about that is that's a wonderful thing. It's exciting. I loved basketball. But the way it changes you is your friends treat you differently, your peers, your coaches treat you differently, your teachers treat you differently. Life becomes sort of, life wasn't very hard for me. In about, I think it was the sixth grade, I was watching an Ohio State basketball game on TV, and I thought to myself, that's where I want to play college basketball. That became the dream for me, is to play college basketball at Ohio State. And at this point, God is like it's a very transactional thing. If I needed something, if I wanted to have a good game, or I needed to pass a test, or I needed something, I would pray, ask God to bless whatever it is that I wanted. But that was the extent of my relationship with God. I was very distant. I knew that I looked at God as he was probably always disappointed in me. He was always angry at me, and that I always let him down. So I continued to succeed in basketball. I get into high school. I end up being the sixth man my freshman year. My high school career was fantastic. We won 4 straight league championships. We had never won that at my high school before. We made it to the regionals 3 times. We made it to the Ohio State championships, which my high school had never been to before, and just had a ton of success. And really, life just really cruised for me because essentially I was getting everything that I had wanted. And looking back on that, I never really gave him any praise or thanks, or never really, because truthfully, I really didn't need God. Things in my life were really great. It was at the end of my junior year of high school that our team took a basketball trip to Ohio State to play in a camp for a week. And the week went on, and at the end of the week, the coach pulled me aside at the end of camp, and he just said, "Hey, Jamie, we've watched you all week. We're going to have a meeting this afternoon, and we're going to offer you a scholarship to come play basketball here." That was, I believe it was June 16th, 1994. And literally, even to this day, that was one of the most special days of my life. It was something I had worked so hard for. It was something that was literally my goal in life was to go get a scholarship and play basketball at Ohio State. And I had realized that dream. I'll never forget, we get on campus and I get to my dorm and we're moving into my dorm and there was something not right. And I couldn't pinpoint it. I had no idea what it was. Something wasn't right. But I end up figuring it out on the basketball court. Maybe after 5 or 6 games, I had started and was averaging 10 points a game. And I remember coming out to my car after the game, and I was with my high school coach and just crying. And I didn't understand what was wrong and why this wasn't filling this big void in my life. And I was living out what I thought would be my dream, and I was literally in the middle of a nightmare. It's a very empty feeling to run out during introductions and have your name called as a starting lineup shooting guard for The Ohio State University and feel empty. I can't even describe what it was like because it just, it was very confusing, to be honest with you. Why doesn't this feel better? Why isn't this more exciting? I didn't see it at the time, but I was 18 and I wasn't able to share that with anyone. I wasn't able to tell anyone something doesn't feel right here. And as the year continued to progress, I knew how to work hard. I knew how to fight, so I was able to still achieve on the basketball court, but even as I continued to achieve on the basketball court, the void inside of me became bigger and bigger, that this is not even remotely touching something that's missing in my life. Why is this the way it is? I just knew that, hey, I need to keep plugging away because everyone's watching. And by the end of the season, I had started to just look for happiness anywhere I could find it. I needed something to numb the pain in my life. I started hanging out, going out, drinking a lot, partying, doing the things at Ohio State that are very easy to do, especially for an athlete, when everybody wants to be around you. So that culminates by the end of the season. Our season ends, and now I'm sort of spiraling out of control. I have broken relationships. I'm drinking 3 or 4 nights a week, and I go out one night after the season and get drunk with a couple teammates and end up getting arrested coming home from the bars, breaking into cars in a parking garage. Something that's just so uncharacteristic for something that I would be a part of. And I end up having to call my mother on Mother's Day of 1996, which was also my birthday, May 13th. And it was a Sunday morning, and I call my mom and say, "Happy Mother's Day, I got arrested last night." It truly was one of the darkest, saddest times of my life. I ended up losing my scholarship to Ohio State. I lived with a lot of shame. I felt like I had let down a lot of people. But it was odd in some sense, like a burden had been lifted from me somewhat, just to be able to get out of that situation. And I look back, being able to reflect on it, saying I was crumbling and I had nobody in my life that would just grab me and say, "Hey, let's get help," because I was crying for help. Well, I ended up transferring to the University of Akron, and for all intents and purposes, had a really good career at Akron. It was all conference for 3 years, won a MAC championship, and ended up getting to graduate from the University of Akron. And from the outside, things looked like it was better. I remember there was an article in the newspaper my senior year and just said, Bosley, what a redemption story. He has redeemed what he had destroyed. And I'll never forget sitting in my apartment reading the article, and no one knew it, but deep down I thought, if they only knew the real Jamie, what was inside. So I ended up graduating from the University of Akron. And I went out into the career world. I turned down some offers to play overseas. I just wanted to go start my life out of the limelight. I had wanted for many, many years to just go live a life under the radar. So I started worked for about a year, and was really doing well because I always was able to figure out how to work hard, how to achieve, how to compete and do well. And to this point in my life, I had never really ever done drugs. The drugs were never a part of my life, but I was out one night with some of my friends at a club. For some reason that night, I said, fine, I'll do it. I'll try it. That one time turns into two times, turns into now I'm doing it every weekend, and I'm keeping my job and my work's going really well, but I'm sort of going down this path that I had no idea where it was headed to, because of that, what the world would say. Go get a job, make money, go start a family, go do all the things that we're supposed to do. Fast forward, now I'm divorced, I'm bankrupt, foreclosed my house, and I got a drug problem, and I'm living in my mom's basement. It was literally, how in the world did it get here? How did your life get here? So during that time, my father became sick with cancer, and I probably never really felt the full gravity of all that during that because I was so deep in addiction. But he was diagnosed with cancer on January 23rd and died 17 days later on February 10th, totally unexpected. And I was able to give him a letter just telling him what a wonderful father he was, and I was honest in the letter and told him I promised I would get my life right with God, really with absolutely no plan or probably understanding of what that even really meant, but I knew how important it was to my dad. I gave him that letter on a Saturday, and he went into a coma the next morning, and he died on the following day. And it was a sad, very, very sad time of my life, but unfortunately, at that point in my life, things were out of control. I didn't have any way or means to fix anything in my life, and I just continued to run after and pursue anything that would try to fill or numb the pain that I had created for myself in my life. And I was still at this point trying to hide everything from everybody. I just wanted to keep my secrets. I wanted to keep it like I had everything together. Well, a really good friend of mine asked me, he said, hey man, I think you need to come to church with me. And it's someone that I respected very much. And I just said, man, you don't know anything about church. I grew up in church. And he looked me in the eye and he said, your life is a total mess. You need to come to church with me. And that stuck with me for multiple reasons, because he was 1,000% right, that my life was a complete mess. And I had a 1-year-old son who I loved with all of my heart. And I just thought, man, my parents loved me so much. If I could end up like this, man, my kid has literally no chance. So my friend asked me to go to church, and I heard about a God who loved me. He cared about me. He was not mad at me at all. But he literally was reaching out both arms, just saying, I love you. I love you. And it reminded me of my dad, because when I was out doing the worst things that I was doing, my dad passed away. And my mom would wake up in the middle of the night, and my dad wouldn't be in bed with her, and she would get up and go look for him, and he would be in my room praying for me. So I made that connection. My dad would never get mad at me. He would grab me by the arm, and he would tell me how much he loved me, and he would tell me that I was not replaceable. And he would just tell me, we didn't raise you to do this stuff, man. We love you. And I would always say, Dad, stop, because he would speak to my heart. He never yelled at me. He never got angry with me. He appealed to my heart. And I connected Christ's love, how he appealed to my heart. And at that point, I was 27, and I was like, hands in the air, God, I'm all in. I don't even know what it means, But I finally know and understand who you are, and I understand what you want from me. And it's been 17 years that God has just had his hand on my life. I never dreamed that I would ever have a family again with a wonderful wife who loves the Lord and loves me and loves our children. And when it comes to being a dad to my kids, Max and Riley, God has placed me with this family, with a second chance in life, really. And really the unique experiences that I've had in life allow me to parent my kids from a different way probably than what I was parented. And it makes me smile because I know that how proud my dad would be of my brother and myself, that we lead godly homes, that we love the Lord and have devoted our life to sharing and loving Christ. Because he was such a model for that. And I didn't know it at the time, but if anything for me, it is such a motivator to lead my family and my wife and my children how my dad did. Sometimes I have to pinch myself when I think about the life that I get to live now, that Christ has called me to. It's exciting, and I have a heart of gratitude. I told my wife a few weeks ago, I said, honestly, the life I've lived, if nothing good happened the rest of my life, I would go to my grave being thankful and grateful for what God has done in my life and how he's renewed and redeemed and healed the things in my life. It's never ending, the things to run after in this world. But what I found in Christ, it set me free.